And I think today really lined up with the official release of pumpkin spice lattes, and that was very, very opportune. Someone at Dunkin' Donuts must have knew that this front was coming through to give you some cooler weather to enjoy one of those coffees with. So cool mornings and pleasant days, the main theme of your 7-day forecast. Rain chances will be back as soon as Thursday, so we were looking at the long-range models. There was nothing definitive on Thursday, and it's still not a very big rain chance, but it's more than what we have for today and tomorrow. And then a cool weekend with some rain. Your high temperatures are going to go down even farther, but your morning low temperatures are going to increase just a touch because we should have our fair share of cloud cover in the forecast. And when you have clouds that are just lingering all day and all night long, they typically keep the numbers a little bit warmer in the mornings because anything in the way of cloud cover kind of traps any kind of radiation that breaks through during the day. So it just traps it at the surface, keeps those numbers a little bit warmer, but during the afternoon it does limit the warm up because obviously more sunshine can't break through the cloud cover that we do have. But enough with the science lesson. Here we go into our current temperatures, and this continues to be a very pleasant sight to see. This is normally what our numbers have been to start out during the very early morning hours, and we're getting close to 11 o'clock right now. 77 at the warmest, and we have a good mix of some low and mid 70s across central Georgia. 74 in Monticello, 73 down here in Macon, 75 in Cochran, 74 also in Montezuma down to Rochelle, 72 degrees in Eastman. That's going to be your lowest temperature, which is matching Thomaston in Upson County. So not too bad temperature wise. And taking a look at the eastern half of the United States, just take a look at the widespread impacts this frontal boundary has had. Just to our north, there is plenty of green. Lots of areas haven't even gotten out of the 60s yet, like Lexington, St. Louis up into Indianapolis. Along the eastern seaboard of the United States, 75 in Virginia Beach, 72 in Charlotte, 77 in Charleston, so that will kind of be a theme. Coastal areas are still going to be feeling the heat and humidity, hence why New Orleans is still at 86 degrees this morning. Houston at 85 degrees, but I think 86 does take the cake for the warmest temperature that we see. I think that's 2 days in a row that New Orleans has been the warmest temperature that we do have on all of these plots. And down in Florida, you can still see holding on to that orange color as well. That front hasn't quite made its way down into the peninsula of Florida and isn't necessarily forecasted to. We typically rarely see these frontal boundaries make their way all the way through the peninsula of Florida. So areas like Orlando, Tampa, and Miami are still going to be warm and humid. Here's a look at your dew point temperatures, and another very, very pleasant sight to see. Not only widespread light green, which has been very hard to come by as of recent months. It has been a story of plenty of dark green, that super muggy category that we always talk about. But we're even seeing some areas and some shades of no color, especially over to the west and northwest of us. That's going to indicate dew point temperatures somewhere into the 50s, but it's a bit of a battleground between the upper 50s and low 60s across central Georgia this morning. All in all, we will take this because dew point temperatures, even in the low 60s, are not going to influence the feels like numbers, and they're really going to inhibit the rain chances. So drier air settling in all across the southeast. You can kind of get a good picture of where this frontal boundary is because there are some more humid areas down as you go into Florida. And then we were talking about New Orleans, 86 degrees, dew point temperature probably is still up there because you can still see plenty of dark green right there on the bottom of the toe of the boot in Louisiana. But areas across the southeast are a whole lot drier than they are used to, especially for the end of August. So your warmest feels like temperature, 79 degrees. Sometimes we have seen triple digits already at this hour over the course of the last month. A very, very pleasant change of pace. So not only are your actual temperatures somewhere in the low to mid 70s, rather, I should say, your feels like numbers somewhere in the mid to upper 70s, very reciprocal of what the actual numbers are. Here's a look at your winds, now actually having a bit of a northeasterly direction to them, not coming in from the northwest like the passage of that front did make its way through yesterday. A steady breeze, 5 to 9 miles per hour in a select few areas, but not seeing any of those occasionally gusty winds up to 15, maybe 20 miles per hour. We could maybe have a gust up to 15 miles per hour throughout today, but overall, the winds won't be a big factor. I think your high temperature and how that high temperature feels will be a bigger story this afternoon. 91 for a high temperature yesterday. Took a while for that cooler air to make its presence known here in central Georgia, although our morning low did get a couple degrees below average. 66 is what we started out with yesterday morning. and that is about 4 degrees below average for this time of year. And yesterday, 56 was the record low back in 1969. Obviously, we didn't get anywhere close to sniffing that yesterday, but as we go into tomorrow, you may be surprised at some of the values that we are going to see as we go into the morning hours tomorrow, really giving you that fall feel in the air. So the cool morning today is going to transition into a mostly sunny and an afternoon that is on the warmer side. Like I mentioned, maybe a bit of a northwesterly breeze, 5 to 15 miles per hour, but mostly sunny conditions will continue to contribute to that warm up. 86 for a high temperature, which is below average, but highs in the 80s, definitely not necessarily feeling very fall-like. That's going to really just be attributed to the mornings over the next couple of days. As we go into the afternoon hours, it's just going to be a more tame summertime day, if you will. 86 for a high temperature, 5 degrees below average this time of year, like we were just saying. But how does it feel? Because we don't have a lot of moisture in the atmosphere. And this heat index graphic has been consistent all morning long, topping out somewhere in the mid 80s, maybe even a degree below what our actual temperature is. We did see that yesterday. I was watching Ben's forecast. He had 91 up here in Macon, and the dew point temperature was way down there, so it only felt like 90 degrees. Obviously, it's basically the same story, whether you're 85, feeling like 85, your actual temperature is 86. So it will be a warmer afternoon, but it will be a more bearable warm in the aspect that, hey, you're not going to have that muggy air that you can wear, just really making it more unbearable to be outside. So we'll continue to hold on to that for at least another day or two. Once we go into Thursday, there are some changes on the horizon that we'll go over. Here's the satellite and radar picture. A good amount of backscatter this morning, but overall, it has just been a morning with some on and off cloud cover, and this cloud cover has mainly been of the upper level cloud cover variety. It hasn't done a very good job of blocking any of that sunlight so far. There is more cloud cover farther up to the north and the northwest, up into northern Alabama, northern Mississippi, stretching up into portions of Tennessee, North Carolina, and up here in North Georgia. So anything that we get in the way of cloud cover will help slow that warm up. But overall, I think this cloud cover is going to really break apart and dissipate as we go throughout the next couple of hours. But Future View is hinting that we could see our fair share of clouds into the picture as we go into the afternoon and evening hours. Nothing worth talking about in the way of rain chances. Today is the one day that I don't have a rain chance that you'll see on the 7-day forecast. But starting out tomorrow, mostly clear and continuing with mostly sunny skies. And then as we transition into the late afternoon and evening window tomorrow, that's when we could welcome in a very isolated shower chance, and it's going to come in the form of a light shower. If anything, we're just starting to see a bit more moisture build back into the forecast as we go into the second half of Wednesday. This is Wednesday at 10 p.m., still hinting at the possibility of a couple of light showers. And that can hang around from the overnight hours into early tomorrow or Thursday morning, before we have still a couple of light showers that are lingering in the forecast for most of the first half of Thursday, transitioning just past lunchtime. That's when your temperatures will be a tad bit warmer, so you'll see some pockets of yellow, maybe some pockets of orange. Wouldn't even rule out the possibility of a very low-end thunderstorm as we go into Thursday afternoon, but overall, it looks like your rain chances are very scattered, and that continues as we go into Friday, so it may be a while before the radar is completely free of rain once again, but it does look like that rain is not going to be very substantial whatsoever, and definitely not a washout like we did have last Friday and last Saturday for many areas. So taking a look at the next 3 days, Wednesday, we welcome back the rain chance, a very slim 10% chance, and that's mainly into the evening hours as we go about Wednesday. High temperature of 85, but note that morning low, 59 degrees for tomorrow. I have greater confidence in more areas reaching the upper 50s for tomorrow morning as opposed to what we did have this morning. I think we had 3 areas dip down to 59 degrees. That was Thomaston, Forsyth, and Eastman, if I do remember correctly. Forsyth even popped up a 58 at one point in time. So typically when we have a cold front pass through, the rule of thumb is the second night after the front does pass through is typically one of the coolest. So the first night was last evening, continuing into the early morning hours. And then as we go into tonight and early tomorrow morning, that's when we should have our coolest air making its presence known before mostly sunny skies will allow for a warm up back into the mid 80s. But those mid 80s are once again going to feel like the mid 80s. Now as we go into Thursday, you'll notice a slight uptick in the morning low temperature. 63 degrees, it's still going to have that cool feeling in the air. And then 85 in the afternoon. Once again, it's going to be a story of partly cloudy skies, along with a slim light shower chance throughout most of the day on Thursday. And 20% chance of that, still not very impressive whatsoever, but it is worth noting because 20% chance of rain is a lot better than what we have in store for this afternoon, and not forecasting anything in the way of rain chances. But then as we head into the beginning of your 3-day weekend, that's where we have even more changes on the horizon. 81 for a high on Friday and 83 as we go into Saturday. Remember what I was talking about with that bit of a science lesson at the beginning of this stream. When you have cloud cover around, it normally limits the warm up in the afternoon hours. Not as much sunshine is going to break through and allow for that surface warm up. So that's why we do have some lower temperatures for Friday and Saturday, because more cloud cover will be in the picture. And talking about your morning lows, you will see those increase, so kind of doing the opposite of each other. Somewhere in the mid 60s, which is still going to be about 4 or 5 degrees below average for this time of year. But the cloud cover hanging around into the morning on Friday, it's going to allow for some slightly warmer temperatures than today and tomorrow. But a low forecasted of 59 for tomorrow morning, and I wouldn't doubt that a couple areas do go even a little bit farther than that. So let's talk about some of the records, because I was mentioning it a little bit this morning. The record for tomorrow morning, the record low temperature back in 1952, 57 degrees all time. My forecasted low, 59 degrees. But like I said, I think we have the potential for seeing some of those numbers dip even lower. Even some models of model runs of Future View have indicated that maybe an area like Thomaston, maybe an area like Eatonton or up in Monticello in Jasper County, they could even get down into the mid 50s, pop up a 55. That's obviously anything but certain, but we'll be on the lookout in case we do break any records tomorrow morning. But then as we go into the weekend, obviously we talked about the introduction to cloud cover. You saw those scattered rain chances on Thursday. That will come because this very, very dry spell looks to be pretty short-lived, unfortunately. We were thinking that Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday would all hang out in this comfortable category, this orange box that you see. Well, it looks like we're going to be pretty quick to see the humidity at least rebound to some reasonable levels. Now, this isn't super muggy by any means by the time we get to Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, but it's in the upper end of the 60s, maybe popping up some patches of that dark green as we go into the weekend. That would be sufficient moisture for at least some scattered shower chances, maybe even a thunderstorm, but it would be a low-end thunderstorm. It's not a slam dunk forecast that we normally have during late August, where you have super, super muggy air, and typically your temperatures are somewhere in the low, maybe even into the mid 90s. But then take a look at this. Sunday into Monday, and obviously the farther out in the future that you go, the less certain that things do become. But it looks like maybe getting an indication of another frontal boundary arriving, and that would give us a reinforcing push of some drier air, maybe not necessarily some cooler air, but we'll take a look at your 7-day forecast and try to fine-tune that as we get closer. Here's a look at long-range future view, and yesterday we were talking about how we didn't see a lot of agreement amongst the European in blue and the GFS in green. Well, no surprise here, we are still not seeing a whole lot of agreement. Right now, if we go the European route, Friday morning looks to be pretty messy, and that will continue into the afternoon hours. But if we go the GFS route, most of the rain chances do look to be around us. When we don't have a lot of agreement like this, obviously the rain chances are going to be less. We need models agreeing with one another before we get more confident in our prediction. But also it does make me pretty confident that we'll have some scattered rain chances, at least in the forecast. So obviously maybe not as widespread as the European is hinting at in blue, but maybe kind of a mix between the two, a bit of a middle ground area, if you will. Let's continue into Friday evening, 9 p.m. Looks like a lot of these rain chances are continuing to try to fizzle out as we go into Friday evening. Probably not going to be a bad thing. I'm sure many of you have plans with friends and family, maybe to watch some of those college football games going on Friday evening. I know Georgia Tech is kicking off Friday at 8 o'clock over in Colorado, so this forecast won't pertain to them, but obviously for all of you back home wanting to cheer on the Yellow Jackets, hopefully we can get the rain chances out of here as we go into Friday night. But still scattered rain chances and scattered moisture getting picked up by these models, not necessarily directly overlapping with one another. But again, this would just be a conducive forecast to watch college game day. Make it a point to stay indoors and watch football all day long. Now we go into Saturday evening, Saturday night. Still, not much agreement whatsoever. The Europeans over here off the Atlantic coast, and the GFS has plenty of rain chances down to the south and southwest of us, but not a slam dunk forecast by any means here in central Georgia for widespread rain. I think we're going to have these scattered shower and storm chances as we go all the way through the weekend. But once again, like I said, anything that pops up in the way of a storm going to remain below severe criteria. You may just hear a couple rumbles of thunder and get some heavy rainfall rates for just a little bit. But heavy rainfall, not a bad thing, because those heavier rainfall rates are going to result in some better rain-cooled air if you do catch maybe a low-end thunderstorm. Let's go all the way through your weekend into Sunday. Well, I guess not through the entire weekend because it is a holiday weekend. So Sunday, the second day of your 3-day weekend, it does look like we're wrapping up with plenty of rain chances around us. Some of those are probably going to creep into central Georgia, even into your Labor Day on Monday. And then Monday afternoon, the GFS hinting at rain. That's trying to creep closer and closer to us in central Georgia, but the Europeans not necessarily totally on board with that. You'll see a little bit of overlap in some areas, but overall it's not a definitive forecast for widespread rain. And then by the time we get into Tuesday, maybe we can get some of that rain to scatter out of the picture again, especially if we are to get another frontal boundary pushed through to provide us with a reinforcing push of that cooler and drier air. So this time of year, we always talk about we want to stay updated on the tropics, and there's really not much to update you on. This time last week, it was quite busy. We had 2 or 3 areas of potential development. We had Hurricane Erin churning off the Atlantic coast. Well, now we have Tropical Storm Fernand, and Fernand is not going to have much more of a lifespan. It has really only gotten up to tropical storm status. I don't even believe it's made it up to hurricane status. The winds continue to weaken. The pressure continues to get higher, 40-mile-per-hour winds. So if we get another update and those winds are down to 35 miles per hour, Fernand will become a tropical depression and expected to become a low pressure center as we go up into the North Atlantic Ocean, maybe even still maintaining tropical storm status. But once you cross this latitude line, I do believe that's when these storms start to just become remnant low pressure systems. So I believe this is going to be around 30 degrees north. I'll have to do some tinkering with that, but still 45-mile-per-hour winds, and then past that timestamp, Fernand doesn't have a lifespan whatsoever. Really, it's just going to continue to disorganize. And right now, the satellite imagery, I mean, it's not looking impressive whatsoever. You can just see the remnants of some cloud cover, but it's not necessarily as put together, not seeing as strong of circulation as we did with Hurricane Erin, which was over to the west about a week ago in time. So Fernand was simply just a fish storm. It didn't impact any land masses besides bringing some rain into portions of the northern Caribbean. It actually went over to the east of the island of Bermuda, maybe had some tropical storm force winds and maybe some increased currents. Overall, didn't have too many impacts over there on the island nation off the Atlantic coast of the United States. Moving northeast at 13 miles per hour, it's going to continue that northeasterly direction up into the North Atlantic Ocean. And what we're going to deem this and what it would probably be known as, if people are really wanting to know more about Fernand, obviously didn't really have any impacts, not much of a talking point. This name will get carried over once we go 6 years in the future to the hurricane season that this name is once again under. But Fish Storm Fernand, that pretty much covers the bases, just really stirring up things in the Atlantic Ocean, didn't have any impacts to any land masses. And this is as of the 11 a.m. advisory. That advisory came out a little bit earlier than 11 a.m. to be included in this stream. So there's where Fernand is, just way off the east coast of the United States. And other than that, we have no activity forecasted for the next 7 days in the Atlantic Basin. So while we were very active last week, we are kind of hitting a lull, even though we are getting into a more active portion of hurricane season itself. But that's not to say that you can't have activity ramp up out of nowhere. I think really we're just not seeing a lot of activity because of this big plume of Saharan dust that continues to linger off the western coast of Africa. But we don't just look there for tropical storm formation. As we know, last year, Hurricane Helene formed down in the Caribbean Sea. Hurricane Milton formed over in the western end of the Gulf. So obviously you can get storms that form in other areas where there's not a lot of dust present, but typically you see this general east to west pattern with these tropical waves moving off the coast of Africa. And I think that's a big reason that's going to inhibit the development of any tropical activity. There's a lot of dust right there, especially off the coast of the Cape Verde Islands. So no activity that we're monitoring as of right now. We'll continue to keep you updated We get these updates 4 times a day, 8 a.m. 2 p.m., and then 8 p.m. and then into 2 a.m. So 2 and 8 o'clock are where we're going to be looking out for maybe some updates about another potential tropical wave that could get its act together. But overall, it doesn't look like we have anything in the near future that is going to claim that G name, which would be the seventh named storm of the 2025 hurricane season. So let's break down your 7-day forecast in a good bit of detail. So right now we have highs in the mid 80s for the next 3 days and increasing rain chances as we go throughout Wednesday evening into most of the day on Thursday. Partly cloudy skies and the chance of a light shower, maybe even some pockets of steady and heavy rain, maybe even a rumble of thunder. I might even put a thunderstorm icon on there for Thursday, but overall your rain chances for Thursday are not very impressive. They're just more impressive than what we have for Tuesday and Wednesday. Each morning is going to start out nice and fall-like, whether you're at 60 degrees like this morning, 59 tomorrow, and 63 as we go into Thursday. It's definitely a pleasant change of pace, and like I said, if you're a fall weather lover, you're getting a very, very premature taste of the fall season. Typically at the end of August, we are still mightily humid and we are still very, very warm. Average high temperature is still around 91 degrees this time of year. If you were to pair that up with some dew point temperatures in the upper 70s like we've been very used to, those numbers would definitely feel like the triple digits or maybe even slightly above. And then you see even more of a downtick in those high temperatures as we go into Friday and Saturday and continuing into Sunday. Low 80s for high temperatures, but the morning lows are going to be a tad bit warmer. Still well below average, 65 or 66 degrees. It will have a pleasant feel in the air because the dew point temperatures not going to be overly humid. They'll be greater than what we have in store for today and tomorrow, but it's not going to be influencing that feels like temperature as much. But the rain chances have seen a steady uptick, still 30%. Guys, that means there's a 70% chance that you don't catch rain as of right now. We're still trying to fine tune it and get a bit of a better idea as we go into the weekend. But overall, a 30% chance of a shower or storm, that is a typical summertime day. That means you have a good likelihood of dodging whatever rain does fall, and it's probably going to be pretty scattered and pretty isolated in nature. If we do see anything, we got to get some agreement amongst the long-range models before, say, we were to uptick it and maybe believe the European solution that had widespread rain. So we'll continue to keep you posted on that, but as of right now, this is nothing worth canceling any of your holiday weekend plans over. And then as we roll into Monday, it's a pretty busy day because you see this icon right here, Labor Day and the first official day of the month of September. But also, as we cross into September, that marks the beginning of meteorological fall. So meteorological fall is going to follow a bit more of a normal schedule in terms of when those temperatures start changing. Obviously, you get into the month of September, farther up to the north, you're starting to feel some of that cooler air a lot more frequently. But down here in central Georgia, we typically get a good start to fall once we get into October. My general rule of thumb after 25 years of living here is right after the Georgia National Fair. That's when we start to really settle into the fall season. We still hold on to a bit of the heat for a little bit during that first part of the fair. And then 30% chance of rain down to 20%. We do have a good likelihood of still remaining below average. I've looked at all the extended forecasts and we're still somewhere in the 80s, even as we go way into, say, next weekend. So that would be September about 6th, 7th, 8th. We still have a very good likelihood of hanging out in the 80s as we go past your 7-day forecast. So hopefully we can get another front to arrive on Monday. It may not usher in some cooler temperatures necessarily, but if we get a reinforcing shot of some drier air, that makes all the difference. And along with that drier air, it really does limit the rain chances. And that's why today we have gone without a rain chance, because that drier air is not going anywhere. It may start to fluctuate a bit as we go into the second half of tomorrow, but tomorrow morning is definitely going to see pretty good widespread dew points, possibly down into the 50s. And like I said, even past Monday, we are expected to hang out in the 80s. I haven't seen a 90 pop up on some of the models that we've been looking at for quite some time, but not to make sure that you are not not to say that we're settling into the fall season, rather, is what I'm trying to say right there. You can't get too comfortable when you get a very cool spell like this, as we are still in the thick of summer here in central Georgia. Obviously, we could warm up just like that as we go say 2 weeks into the future. We know that we can have our fair share of hot days in September. I think that first 100-degree day graphic that I was showing a lot once we were really flirting with that 100-degree mark about 3-4 weeks ago in some time. The latest 100-degree day did actually happen in September for the first time that we hit that. So it is possible to see a very big warm-up even as we go into September. Even though it's the start of meteorological fall, the official start of fall is going to be around September 21st. And even past that, we know we can still see a warm spell. I'm sure many of you have been to the fair when it is quite hot and all of that asphalt there down by the fairgrounds is just scorching hot. So don't let your guard down yet, but it is a very opportune change of pace. And obviously, especially after the wet weekend that we just went through, hopefully we can really continue to limit those rain chances. Everything that I have in store for Friday through Sunday and continuing into Monday, it's not going to be like last weekend. It's not going to be a widespread washout for many areas. I think it's mainly just going to be in the form of some scattered rain. So we'll roll into the month of September, and hey, this weekend is your first 3-day weekend. If you're watching and you've just been dreading these last couple of weeks because of back to school, well, you finally have a bit of a mini vacation. Then I know just about a month later in some time, a lot of you will have fall break that you can head out to the fair or maybe heading on that one last vacation before it really gets cold here in Central Georgia, I guess you could say. But fall break will be coming up very shortly, so you have a lot of things to look forward to. And of course, with that, hopefully some 80s in store as we go into the extended portion of your forecast will be something else for you to look forward to. And we'll keep our fingers crossed that we keep the humidity levels down. Obviously don't want those upper 80s, maybe some mid 80s feeling above the feeling near the triple digit mark. But it doesn't look like we have that kind of heat in store, at least for the next 2 weeks here in Central Georgia. So a nice change of pace, and I hope you fall lovers like myself are very, very happy and enjoying this bit of crispness and bit of briskness that we do have to start out the next couple of mornings. That will do it for your extended forecast. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you at 10:30 once again tomorrow.